Renegade, Chapter 22, page 197. Take a minute, Private. Pike had handed off the dead man to two Marines loading the back of the pickup. Turning, he spotted Towers standing only a couple of feet away. The sun had crept down in the west, stretching cooler shadows across the urban background. Clouds of flies had descended upon the scene as well and flitted from place to place. Pike wore his scarf over his mouth and nose to keep from sucking flies up when he breathed. Sure, Pike pinched his scarf to hike it higher on his nose. His back and shoulders burned from all the lifting. You heard anything about the kid? Last I heard, it was still touch and go. Let's grab some space. Towers strode through the street. He kept his M4A1 in his fist and his gaze moving as he watched over his people. He'd worked alongside the Marines, pitching in and offering moral support to some of the guys who were still green and needed a break from the horror around them. Kids have a way of pulling through stuff that would kill an adult. Pike didn't say anything to that. Hector didn't know why Towers had singled him out. He didn't know why Towers had singled him out. Pike had worked steadily, even skipping some of the breaks that the other Marines had taken. There was no reason for Towers to pull him aside. Towers halted on the opening of an alley. He took out a pack of spearmint gum, offered it to Pike, who took a stick and then took one himself. Gotta admit, I'm kind of worried about you. Surprises me because that's something I never thought I would be. Unflinching, still cold and hard, Pike met the gunny's gaze full on. Pike unwrapped the gum and put it in his mouth. Out of habit, he folded the paper and shoved it into a pocket. He spent a lot of time on recon and training to not leave a trail stayed with him. Of course, he'd first learned that when he and Petey had gone into business for themselves. Aren't you even going to ask why I'm worried about you? Towers chewed thoughtfully. No, you decide to worry, you will worry. You want. I'll tell you you're wasting your time. Towers grinned and shook his head. This is what? My second tour with you? Yeah. When I saw you in Somalia, you had all kinds of bark on you. Never let nothing or nobody in. Never hung with other Marines by design. Drifted in some, but you didn't let anybody close, except maybe Becca Shaw. Pike chewed his gum and kept his gaze roving as well. How are you sleeping? Horizontal when I can. Towers frowned. I'm trying to help you here, son. I ain't your son. Pike spoke before he knew he was going to. The quick, hard response came out of the past, out of those days he'd spent in foster homes listening to men who'd acted like they wanted to be his dad, but they really were only taking him and the other kids in for the money. The women had been just as bad, but Pike hadn't been able to stomach the guys who thought that he somehow owed them thanks and respect for taking him in. Everybody had their own agenda. Even Petey had concentrated on his own there at the end, which had been a surprise and had taught Pike that final lesson. It was just how people were. Towers' eyes narrowed somewhat, burned a little with anger, but he nodded in understanding. Got daddy issues too, Marine? On top of everything else? For just a moment, Pike thought about punching Towers. It would have meant spending some time in the brig, but he was willing to do that. He'd done it before, except that it might also have meant the end of his career in the Marines, which he wasn't ready to let go of. And he liked Towers for the most part. Admittedly, he liked the man more than when he was yelling at him to get something done instead of trying to get into his head. Towers had shifted as well, and Pike realized that the man had gotten prepared for a punch to be thrown. In fact, Towers seemed more surprised that Pike hadn't reacted violently. A trace of disappointment showed on Towers' face, and then was gone just as fast as it had manifested. I got a lot of issues, Gunny. I think we both know that from the way I've been busted in rank. Yeah, I guess we both know that. Towers adjusted the strap of his assault rifle over his shoulder. But this isn't about a lack of respect for authority. This is about what I seen in you this tour, and what I seen in your eyes when you hauled that boy out from under the van. Wasn't nothing to see. There was something there. For just about a minute, you didn't see nothing except fatigue. Page 200. Towers studied Pike for a moment. What'd you leave undone back home, Pike? 'Cause you sure didn't show up with this Marine mindset here and your past back there. I'm fine. Who you got waiting on you? Pike was silent for a moment. If you're expecting some kind of a warm fuzzy to come out of this, you got another thing coming. I'm not expecting that. Tower's dark eyes bored into Pike. I'm just trying to figure out the name of that devil that's riding on your shoulder. Ain't no devil on my shoulder. If you think you're seeing devils, you should consider checking in with the chaplain or the corpseman. But bet they got something to fix that. Even as he spoke, though, Pike knew Towers didn't believe him. For a time, Towers held Pike's gaze, and then he finally nodded, more to himself. Contrary to your rank and the way you handle your authority, you're a good Marine, Pike. I've seen some of that back in Somalia. Seen me some of the bad, too. Ain't gonna say I didn't. I figured there was something in you worth saving in Somalia. But could be I was wrong. If I find out I was, that'll go in the after-action reports I file on you. Pike didn't like getting threatened, but he bit back a hostile reply. You got two men inside you, Marine. One's a man I could call a friend, but the other one? Towers shook his head. I don't want to know that one. Don't want to see him showing up out here neither. Hutchinson, he just about got to see that side of you up close and personal. Pike kept chewing the gum and watching the street. Whatever you say, Gunny. Yeah, it is what I say. Towers' nostrils flared, and Pike thought maybe it was out of anger, but he figured it might have been out of frustration too. Like I said, you got two men in you and a devil riding your shoulder. You figure out which one of them you want to be, and you let me know. I gotta skip the page 202. Hours later, Pike stood under a lukewarm shower in the barracks. Soap stung the cuts and abrasions he'd picked up during the day. Blood sluiced down the drain. He lathered up twice, enjoying the smell of the soap, shaved by touch, then reluctantly turned the shower over to the man next in line. He dried off outside the showers, dressed in fresh camos he'd brought from his kit, and bagged his dirty clothing. He stood relishing the feel of fresh socks inside the boots he'd scrubbed as clean as he could of dirt and blood. Hefting the duffel bag in his M4A1, Pike headed for the door. Outside, one of the regular Marines stood guard, leaning against a Humvee while he watched the grounds. Night had fallen, and Kandahar had grown quiet with it. Earlier, the loudspeakers had called Muslims out for final prayers, and their voices had sounded everywhere. Now the city seemed at peace, which was as far from the truth as it could be. Hey, Marine, Pike. A Navy corpsman walked towards the facility. She was young and lean, close cut and clean, wearing tidy camos. Pike waited, but said nothing. The woman came to a stop in front of him. She smelled like a hospital, strong whiffs of betadine clinging to her. Well, there was something else, too, a floral fragrance that carried a hint of lemon. She was pretty, dark blonde hair and green eyes, 5.5 feet tall. Her nose had a slight bump in it, like it had been broken at some point and hadn't healed correctly. But it gave her character, and Pike liked the look on her. Is it Pike, right? Yeah. Things get crazy like they did yesterday. I don't always remember names, but I remember you because you brought that boy in. She shrugged. Mostly I remember we had a hard time prying him away from you. She smiled. Kind of hard to do our job while you were hanging on to him. Pike didn't remember it that way, but it wasn't worth the argument. How's the boy? Doing good. I saw him earlier. Bullet went through his abdomen and missed everything vital. God was watching over him. Pike resisted the impulse to point out that if God had truly been watching over the boy, he wouldn't have gotten hurt and his mother would be dead. Good to know. The woman offered her hand. I'm Julie Meadows. Pike took the proffered hand and felt the smooth strength of her grip. You know me? Julie smiled at him. You just go by Pike. Pike? Just one name? Like Cher? Most everybody just calls me Pike. All right, Pike, she nodded. You're one of the new rivals from Charlie Company. Yeah, Pike was conscious of the Marine by the Humvee watching him. Big wake-up call today. You guys barely got on the ground. Page 204. Pike shifted his kit over his shoulder and wished the woman would get to whatever it was she had on her mind. I've got a confession to make. Her green eyes sparkled. I didn't just happen by. Your gunny told me where to find you. He sent you? No, I came looking for you. Why? To tell you about the boy, for one, and for another. I thought you might like company for dinner. Why me? It wasn't unusual for a woman to hit on Pike. He knew part of it was he never intended to be stopped by one. They were just diversions as he rolled along. The question gave her pause. but only for a moment. I need to have a reason? Yeah. She placed her hands on her hips and gazed steadily up at him, a slight smile on her lips. I have to say, your guy warned me away from you, told me you were antisocial. I know I'm not a supermodel, but generally when I offer to spend time with a guy because I want to know him a little more, I get a better reaction. She shrugged. No foul. I guess I'll see you around, Private. She turned and started to walk away. Pike watched her leave. Turning a girl down wasn't a big deal. Over the years when he had been running with Petey, there had been a lot of girls. But he thought of how the woman had taken the boy from his arms, the professional way she'd started taking care of him, and the way she'd checked Pike over when she had the chance. She was good at her job. She'd had a rough day, too. So maybe her attention was nothing more than somebody looking for something new so that she wouldn't have to rehash the horror of the day. She just wanted a distraction from the earlier events. Pike didn't owe her that. He didn't owe her anything. He reminded himself of that even as he called out to her. Hey, Doc, give me a second. 10 feet away, Julia looked back at him. You don't have to call me Doc. The address was one of respect. Marines only used it for corpsmen they had been under fire with. Yeah, I do. Pike walked over to join her. I want a do-over. A do-over? She had crossed her arms and kept herself distant. What if I said I didn't believe in do-overs? Then I wouldn't blame you. I rarely ask for them. So the ball's in your court. A smile peeked out again. What do you want to do over for? For dinner. I'd like to take you up on that. My offer's been withdrawn. Pike grinned, liking her moxie. Okay, so let me ask you to dinner. Why? I need a reason. Her defenses almost cracked at that one. So we can eat. Not interested. Believe it or not, Private, there's a lot of Marines I can eat with. Julie turned to go. Doc, I'm sorry. And that's something I try to never say. So if you're going to accept it, that'll be it. If you're not going to accept it, that'll be it. She stopped and looked at him. For a moment, he thought she was still going to walk away. And he told himself he didn't care. That would just be the end of a bad day, no sweat. He'd have another one tomorrow. Lucky for you, I'm hungry now, and don't want to eat by myself or go looking for more tolerable company. Page 206. Understood. And for the record, I came looking for you because I was impressed by the Marine I saw who was taking care of that little boy today. A lot of guys like the idea of being a hero, but all you were concerned about was that boy. I like the selflessness I saw. Her words made Pike feel awkward, and he started thinking of maybe he should just have let her walk away. Maybe you saw wrong. She smiled and shook her head. I've had my share of bad boys, Pike. I know you're one of those too. Under the right circumstances, when you're pushed or backed into a corner. We're not going to visit those circumstances tonight. I didn't come here looking for that guy. I'd rather be with the guy I saw carrying the boy earlier today. This is dinner, and maybe a chance to get to know someone else. My life's open to new experiences. I learn more that way. And since I'm in the people business in the medical field, I want to learn more about you people. You're a person. Despite his misgivings and the way her words echoed Towers' earlier comment, Pike smiled. Simple as that, huh? Life can be pretty simple when you get in there and learn to accept things. I have. She shrugged. Plus, I like your ink. What's that? What is that? She peered at his shirt collar. A dragon? A dragon? Self-consciously, Pike pulled at his shirt. The Marines were strict about ink. If it wasn't covered by a blouse, Marines had to get their ink removed or leave the Corps. His neck tat, barely covered usually, must have shown through this at some point. Yeah, a dragon. Cool, I like dragons. Julie nodded to his duffel. Why don't you stow that and let's get dinner? All right. We could eat in the mess hall, but I figure a guy who wears a dragon around his neck probably has an adventurous spirit. If you do, I know a couple of places that will be open tonight. No beer, since we're in a Muslim country, but you can sample the native cuisine. Ever been to Afghanistan before? I have. Helmand province. We've got a few places with Indian food if you like it hot. You go to the Mumtaz restaurant. It can be pricey, especially after today. But I know a few small cafes where you can eat for a reasonable price. Sounds good. To his surprise, Pike was looking forward to the meal. Chapter 23. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Gerald Benton. I'm the point man for the Central Intelligence Agency regarding the three agents who have gone missing and are believed to be in the hands of Zalmay Yaqub. To add that to earlier today, Yaqub kidnapped an American journalist named Jonathan Sebastian. Together, we're going to track down and lock down Yaqub.